The Art of Leadership Network.
To be stuck means that I believe two things about life. One is that I'm powerless, and two is I'm alone. When a person believes they're in a situation where they're powerless, you're stuck.
Helping you design your roadmap to wholeness from the inside out. This is Win Today. And now, here's your host, Christopher Cook.
Hey friends, thanks so much for joining me this week for episode 282 of the podcast, where today the most downloaded guest of all time is back, and that's Jamie Winship. Today we're talking about how to get unstuck, why pain is good, and living from our true identity versus this current cultural obsession with radical individualism, finding yourself inside yourself, speaking your truth, and the like. So buckle up and get ready. Well, listen, I want to take a moment to tell you about a brand new resource I want to put into your hands. It's my new weekly email, Win the Week, which is all about getting under the hood of your heart so that incremental steps toward transformation can be made in your mental and emotional health and in your spiritual growth. Guys, it's a quick win, quick read, no frills weekly email designed to be read and applied in less than 5 minutes. So go to wintoday.tv right now, sign up today, join the thousands of people that receive Win the Week each and every week. I really believe it's going to add value to your life. And lastly, before we head into the conversation with Jamie, if you're enjoying the podcast, share it, send a text to a friend, and invite them to listen as well. And then rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening, especially on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. Here's why. When you rate, when you review, and when you share Win Today, the listenership grows. It's as simple as that. So thank you for listening and for doing that. Right now, here's my conversation with Jamie Winship on getting unstuck, the lie of being alone, radical individualism, and why pain is good. You're listening to Win Today on the Art of Leadership Network. Well, it's always a treat when one of my favorite people on the planet joins the podcast. I don't even know how many times this is at this point, Jamie, but welcome back.
Thank you. It doesn't matter how many times it is. Always fun.
It's always fun. Yeah.
It's like being with a friend. You don't count the times. It's just fun. It's just good to be with.
Yeah, likewise. Well, Jamie, this is what I love about our conversations is that, as is typical when you're here, I'll just set a context, set a target, and then you just take it and teach us. And here's the target for today, Jamie. A lot of people just feel stuck right now. So if you were to biopsy this experience, what would you discover is going on?
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's great. Yeah. So the way and of course, the reason I'm want to talk about this topic with you is because I know what it feels like to be stuck, obviously. And so I only want to speak about things where I have some kind of experiential understanding about. And so to be stuck. And so I've had periods in my life. So I'm 62 and I've had periods in my life where I've been stuck for a day, for an hour, and years. I mean, actually, one period of my life, 3 years of just being absolutely stuck, lost. And when I say stuck, I mean like in quicksand stuck, not like I'm not sure what to do. It's like I have no vision, no idea who I am, what I'm supposed to do. I'm just absolutely going down the drain. And then when you're stuck, you start doing things that stuck people do, and you start grabbing at anything you can find to get out. Which makes it actually worse. Like they say in quicksand, the more you struggle, the faster you sink. So in quicksand, you're supposed to just kind of spread out and just stay calm. But you start moving around and grasping at things and making decisions that you shouldn't make, and you end up getting in more and more difficulty and trouble. So as I think, and then what things helped, bring me out of that situation of being stuck, or that mindset of being stuck. And I thought it was curious and beautiful what did actually do it. So that's what I was thinking about. And so as I was thinking about doing a talk on this topic or writing something about the topic, I believe very strongly in models that if we're going to do anything it's way easier if we have a model to look to, that at least something that we can say, well, this helps me be able to know the truth about the situation that I'm in. So that was as I look back on what helped me become unstuck. And it was always a relationship with a person that did it. It was some kind of relational, someone in my life or that came into my life. It wasn't ever anything I read or anything I just started doing myself. It had to do with some kind of human relationship. What is the definition of stuck? Like, what does it mean? And so that's what I kept thinking about. When I feel stuck, what's the truth about what's really, what I really believe? And the way out of every situation is truth telling. I mean, that sounds so simple, but it is. Stuckness thrives on falsehood or deception or accusation, or like that's actually what creates it, and that's what perpetuates it, is just wrong belief about, wrong perceptions about things. So truth is part of the solution out. So if I can say the definition, what's the truth? When I feel stuck, what is the definition of how I feel? Like, what's the truth about what I really believe? And so, we can talk into how do we get to that place. But my answer was, to be stuck means that I believe two things about life. One is that I'm powerless. That's one. And two is I'm alone. Powerless and alone. When a person believes they're in a situation where they're powerless, you're stuck. And when you're powerless and alone, you're really stuck. Right? So those two, and people, I mean, I was having this discussion yesterday with a person. People can tell you how they know it's true that they are powerless and they are alone. It's not like they're making it up, right? It's not just a perception. They can say, this person rules my future, or this situation rules my future. There's nothing I can do to change it. And no one can help me. There's nothing I can do to change it, powerless. And no one can help me or wants to help me. I am alone, powerless and alone. So I'm not minimizing the person or myself, saying, no, I believe I'm stuck and alone, as if it's just pure, you're making it up. It is real. Even, to the point of like a prisoner or, people in concentration camps, or like those situations. So it's the belief that I'm powerless and alone. So once you are able to say, okay, this is what I truly believe, then you kind of have two things you can think about. Okay, am I powerless? Really? Am I really powerless? And am I really alone? Because if I'm actually not powerless, well, then there is something I could do. And if I'm not really alone, there's actually a community to link into, both of which humans need. So I believe everywhere I've ever worked in the world, with any group I've ever worked with, people's greatest fear is to be powerless and alone. That's their great fear, is that, that's what life is going to be like, right? No matter what level.
Yeah, it's so true. And okay, so if we stay on this and deconstruct false identities of not just powerlessness happened to me, alone happened to me, I am. But there's the false identities you said. So if we deconstruct these even further, talk to the listeners, Jamie, about the difference then between true and truth. Because, I was telling a group of people I was speaking to last week, I was using the iPhone as an example. And I'm like, well, my lived experience and my truth is this is a doorstop. But truth and true are different things. So our way out of stuck, our way out of the false identities of I am powerless, I am alone, like what's feeding both of those? What keeps them alive?
Right. And that's a great, I love that. That's a great example, because when we were working with a bunch of middle schoolers on Monday, 20 middle schoolers who are great. And our main thing was we we need to help these kids understand what it means to tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting. So for them, to tell the truth means don't lie. But that's actually not because a person can say what they believe is true or what is truth, and it's not true. So the stuckness part of I am powerless. And so then the question is, okay, so when what then is your definition of that you have power? Like what's the demonstration that you have power in a situation? What's your and so if a person says, well, I'm in control of everything, already we're off. Like you're going to be right back and stuck again soon. Even if you could get to that sense that I'm in control of everything, it won't last. So that perception that unstuckness equals I'm in charge, or I have certainty about the future, it's not a move towards what's true. Does that make sense?
It totally does. And, to the extent you'd want, take us even further in this, because there are people who are leaders listening right now, and there are people who are just desiring to move forward in this new year. And this is honestly, for a lot of us, this is the third year of walking through global trauma and figuring out, oh my gosh, am I just a product of my circumstances? And so I think one of the things that I loved when I heard you teach on this first, we were texting about this, is in order to step into the new, there has to be a death of something. Now, this is really scary and painful for people. Can we just spend some time on that? What do you want us to know?
Right. So, yeah. And I was talking about this, like in the sense of I was joking about people making New Year's resolutions. And
yes.
One of a New Year's resolution that some people make is this year I'm going to learn something new. And then in the surveys I was reading, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to stop smoking or drinking, and I'm going to learn something new, these things. And which one of them did people move away from fastest in the, which resolutions did they drop? And I don't know, number 3 or 4 was they decided that they're not going to learn something new. Like they dropped that one, which is interesting. So they might have said, like, I'm going to learn German, or French, and then they didn't do it. But it's there's a much deeper meaning there when I wanted to learn something new, but I decided learning something new is just too difficult. Wow, what a statement for our culture. Like, we're not committed to discovering what's new and true, because to do it, things have to die. Old ideas have to die to move to the new. So if I discover that this is true in science, that means that this is a new thing we've discovered that's true. It means other things that we've believed are probably then not true. The example I gave when I was writing about this was, for a long time, people thought static electricity was produced by angels. And so when Faraday and them kind of proved, a lot of people didn't want to believe in static electricity. And so why? Because then in their mind, then what they held as true had to die in order to embrace the new truth, even though the new truth was actually true. And this one wasn't true to begin with. It was a wrong view. And so when you move to believe something new, then other ideas do have to die. Or when you decide to have a new view of another people group or person, the previous view of them that produced conflict has to die. This is called forgiveness. One way. So that's scary to people. Is like, one young Muslim student told me years ago when we were teaching, she said, the truth is not worth it to me to sacrifice what my father taught me when I was young. I don't want to learn that my father was incorrect about things he said. That's more important to me to maintain my view of my father than to discover something new. And I get that. I understand it, but wow, you talk about stuck, right? I was raised to believe this thing and I can't change it because it's disrespectful or damages tradition. So it gets us, that's the thing. It's like, to be able to say I'm wrong about this, that is very hard for people to come out of that.
What does it really take for us to get to the place of being okay with that level of change. And I'll just go back to what you said. You said transition and new ideas are frightening. Back to the example of what you just shared about that girl with her father.
Right.
You said we tend to criticize everyone with a new idea until years later when we adopt the idea as good and right and practical, and now this is commonplace.
Right.
So, Jamie, I'm just curious then, all your years of coaching, and here you are, you and Donna are living overseas, subduing hostile nations and people groups without force. What's missing then in our neurodevelopment, in our emotional development that causes us to be so change averse?
Yeah, I think, what you're saying is fear. It's absolute fear.
Yep.
Again, which results in, and I said this in the group I was in this morning, is we are trained from day one that life is about self-protection and self-promotion. I mean, it's just constantly bombarded into us at every level that, and this is back to the scarcity worldview, is that there's limited resource, there's limited time, there's limited money. So we have to protect because no one else is going to do it for us or with us. You're alone. Mm-hmm. We have this idea of self-protection and self-promotion is the right way to go. And so then when there's a situation that comes in that's going to threaten that's new, that threatens that, we just automatically resist it. And we're trained to, like, this is a threat to me. That's all we need to know, is this is a threat, and therefore I'm going to push back on it.
How do we then re-index ourselves in the 18-inch journey, heart to head, to the knowledge, experience-based knowledge that change is good and the death of old things is in fact good? Like, what does it take to re-index ourselves?
Yeah. Pain. Simple answer.
Take us into that, Jamie, because a lot of people listening right now, hearing you say that is a little chilling.
Yeah. I know it is.
And you've told me, just in our friendship and your mentorship and all that, I remember we were sitting at coffee, I think in 2017 or 18, and you looked across from me and you said, Chris, transition involves pain. And I was like, I know, but I don't like to hear it. Talk to people listening right now, Jamie. What does that look like? How does it play out? And how do we relinquish the control or the fear of losing control? What's going on?
Right. Yeah, so pain's interesting. So, I think there's lots of good writers on this topic about suffering and pain. So we know as humans in this world that we're going to encounter suffering and pain. We know, it's a guarantee. It's funny to me how we work so hard to avoid it, because it's almost delusional to think you're going to avoid it. It's not even, you talk about not living in truth. Spend your life trying to avoid pain. That's living in a world that's just not true. You almost have to separate yourself from truth itself, trying not to get hurt, right? Because it's guaranteed. And so when so pain avoidance, is what leads to every kind of addiction there is, right? Mm-hmm. Is to avoid pain. So first of all, that's just the level of falsehood. We're like, we can live a pain-free life. That's our goal. We're going to figure out how to live a pain-free life, which means we're never going to grow, right? We're never going to grow. So even working out and tearing down muscles so muscle builds back up. That's the way this works, is the old no pain, no gain. But so when pain comes, it's, either when pain comes, when suffering comes, when COVID comes, when inflation comes, when war comes, all those things come, it's an invitation to transformation. That's what it is. It's the only thing that makes suffering worthwhile. Otherwise, suffering is just a tragedy to be endured, right? So when you have order, and disorder comes because it will, it's the invitation to reorder. That's what it. Order, disorder, reorder. And then the reorder becomes the order. We're ascending, we're growing, we're learning. But it only comes through transition, which is typically either causes its own suffering or it's brought about by suffering. Either way, pain, struggle, failure is an invitation to transformation. And we can talk about reordering neural pathways. We can look at it with a sense of joy. Like, okay, this is going to be hard. This is going to be awful, maybe. However, it can lead to something greater. It's supposed, that's the way it's supposed to be. So we can, like the passage about Christ looking at the horror of the cross, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross, knowing there's something beyond the pain. There always is. There's something beyond the struggle, the suffering. Writing a book, whatever, it's a struggle. It's painful. It's discipline. Why are you doing it? Because there's something beyond it that's greater and worth it. So that's I just keep coming back to that idea. It's like, okay, when we encounter pain and suffering and struggle, in the midst of it, it's the idea like we have two choices here, because the pain's real and it's going to happen, and the struggle's real, it's going to happen. We can either resist it and make it more painful and more of a struggle, or we can move with it and allow the struggle to become redemptive, to move us to a higher level, a greater level. So that's just our options. When you resist struggle and change, you are stuck. You are stuck. All the way back to that. Because now I feel powerless. Like I can't stop the pain, I can't stop the struggle, and I'm alone in it.
Okay, this is interesting because just to use the last couple of years as an example, or when there's change in life or change in a relationship or change in a structure, a team or a family unit, whatever, we often revert to what we once knew, thinking, oh, it worked then, it'll work now.
Right.
But what I just heard you say is actually that keeps us stuck even more.
Right. It's like saying, okay, we've had COVID. How do we get back to how it was before COVID? That's the mistake. That's like that you're now stuck. Now, all we're trying to do with COVID is like endure it so we can get back to what we were, instead of saying, what can we do with this? What can we learn from this? Like, how does this make us think about how we've treated our bodies or treated the world? Like, use the pain to grow, to bring redemption. Otherwise, it just embitters us and makes us more fearful, right? That's what I'm talking about.
So what I hear you saying then is when we're at the threshold of change, at the threshold of something new, we have an option. And folks, I want you to listen and drill into this, lean into this. Jamie, what I hear you saying is we have an option for number one, fear and going backwards, or vision, embracing pain and moving forward. What does it take in our development? What does it take in our character to go in the way of being pro-vision?
Yeah. Right, and I think this is how we get unstuck. I think, again, so like to say I'm never going to get stuck is just naive to say these kinds of statements, or I can live a life where I'm going to be unstuck the whole time. These are just not true. We're going to hit these things. Humans, we're all going to do it. We're going to get stuck or have the sense of it. So it usually comes because of pain or struggle, or things didn't go the way we planned. So just a couple of things in that. So when that happens, again, so for me, my model, I always look for a model who has gone through stuckness really well and moved beyond it. So Jesus is always my model ultimately. And then there's others, that have done it. But so what's the commonality, even when you have someone like Jesus, who is saying in the scenario of the crucifixion and the arrest and all that, coming up to it is, my soul is so troubled within me, I think I'm going to die. So like if I'm in a situation where I believe I'm stuck, or I might believe I'm stuck, or I've been stuck. So what's the process? So number one is community. Stay in community, like above everything. once you're by yourself and you turn inward, you've lost your perspective. You'll lose your perspective. You'll lose track of the landscape. You'll lose track of who you are, and you'll just go in and down, right? And it is hard to pull yourself out. Very difficult. So friends, community, trusted people that you've already developed before you hit the pain and the struggle and the suffering and the stuckness. Like, this is what you're doing on the good days. Developing community that I can go to and say, look, as Jesus said, come with me into my pain. We're not afraid to have people know that we're in pain, right? And so part of my 3-year deep dive into depression and darkness was totally alone. Even though I was married and have kids, it's still completely, the aloneness has nothing to do with there's folks around. It's there's no one in the darkness with me, like that sort of thing. And so community, and then not only just community, but community that you truth tell with. And so back now to what is truth telling. Truth telling is saying, this is what I believe to be true right now about myself, the world, the scenario I'm in. The absolute, open the soul. I'm terrified right now. It's so hard for people to say that to another person. Even people that are close won't say their deep fear to another. Like, we're taught not to. You're self-protecting, self-promoting. So I am weary unto death. And say the truth. I think I'm going to die. I think I'm never going to get out of this. So community, number one, and then community where you open up your and be vulnerable. But by vulnerable, I'm saying, just tell the truth. I'm terrified. I think I'm nothing. I think I'm going to die. That kind of thing. So that's important. And then to be able to pour your heart out also to something that's greater than yourself, right? Love, God, just pour it out to and this is the statement that Jesus makes, but I can't think of anything more beautiful than this. Not my self-protective, self-promotional plan is going to die here. That's what you want to do in the pain. Let the disorder, let it have it. This is my plan, because that's typically what's happening. The way I hope things could go aren't going. They're not going. Let them go. Let them go. Give them up. Let them go. It doesn't mean you'll never do it again. Just the way they're going right now, it's like you're carrying a rock and you're sinking with it. Let it go. Not my will. I love that statement. The way I had this mapped out, I'm letting it go. It didn't happen. This relationship with this person, I'm letting it go. I'm releasing it in order that the new can come. Right? In order that the transformation, the reordering can occur. Not my will, thy will be done. We can trust in that. It's what the whole real system is about. It's not about separateness and death and self-promotion. That's all human generated. The reality of it is life. God is for you. Life is for you. So letting it go, and then the reorder, whatever the new thing is, the adjustment is good, right? Trusting that it's good and we're going to move towards it. Expectation, hope. So let me give you a quick example of that. How practical that is. So there's a guy, I have a good friend here, works a certain job. He's worked it many years. He's been working with identity and, just an average guy here. And he's working in identity and he's really learned to a deeper level of who he actually is. And in that process, he kind of lifted his eyes up and looked around him and he saw an opportunity to move to a different kind of career. And it really activated him, and he went and he interviewed and they liked him and they said, we're in a process, we're going to narrow it down. There's a lot of candidates for this, but you're certainly, qualified. And he came in, he was in our little group and he was sharing how excited he was about it. And He never thought he would apply for something like this, and it was amazing, down to him and another guy, and he didn't get it. And he was heartbroken, devastated by it, almost inconsolable. So he comes back, he doesn't even want to talk about it. Didn't work. I tried. I really thought God was with me. I really thought this was going to go. I really believed it was the right thing. And it's funny, when he went to apply for it, there was disorder in his life suddenly. It wasn't just I go to the job 9 to 5 and I do all that. Now there's disorder, and the disorder is really great. And he's looking at different careers and all this, and he goes to step out, and it doesn't go the way he thought. So the truth is, okay, all right, okay, but he moves immediately into self-protection. I shouldn't have done it. It wasn't I was misled. I thought incorrectly about it. Why didn't they pick me? I was the right person for the job. And he goes into this place where he's very dark and he's very isolated and he's stuck and alone. And he's making statements like, I'll never get this chance again, this kind of thing. So when I was talking with him, I kept saying to him, just tell me what's true, though. What's true? What's true? You had it because you're doing this work in yourself. All of a sudden, you have a bigger vision, and you see an opportunity. That's actually, the opportunity's been there for years. He just never looked up, and so he goes after it. He pursues it. He does the work. He goes after it. So I'm just telling him, tell me what's true. And you went and you interviewed, and what happened? You didn't get it. Okay, that's true. Okay, that's all true. Keep going. What else is true? I was wrong in thinking about it. It's not true. It's not true. It was, my thinking was wrong. I overestimated. All false, false, false. So this is what I asked him. What did the position represent to you? Not what was the actual literal position. What were you going after? You weren't going after a job. That's wrong to think. You were going after something bigger than what you do now. What about that particular job enlivened you? Well, I could be with people. In my job, I'm not with people. Did that end? Is there no other opportunity to be with people? For the first time, you told yourself the truth. I'd rather be with people than make the money I'm making. That's a huge discovery. Right. And so in that discovery disordered your little 9 to 5. I got a 401k. It disordered that world and it shook it up, and you moved in it, and you should have, to reorder. However, there's pain in the reordering. Now you got to figure it out. So yeah, I would have been working with people. Right. I would have been out in nature. So I'm just writing down what he's saying. None of that is wrong. It's all still true. But because he's in community with me, I'm not going to let him die in the lie of I shouldn't have done it. And so we're writing down, what about that particular job appealed to you? And he's writing down all these things that are in 1,000 different jobs. And the world is, and I said to him, here's what you're free to do. Go find them. Don't go back into, I'm stuck in the 9 to 5 job. There's no other, you had this disorder reordering. His wife was super excited about all of it. Don't go back. Don't go backwards in it. And so he's in community. He's pouring his heart out to us. We're pointing him to, keep going, reorder. You were in disorder. Okay, let's reorder, but we can help you do it. And so there's joy ahead of you. This was worth it. This pain that you're in right now is worth it to get to the joy. So that's what I'm talking about. So the idea that he's powerless and alone, what the community's doing is saying, not true, not true, not true, not true, not true, not true. Did the thing work out the way you wanted it? No. True. Is it the end? No. You're just at the beginning of this. So what it's done actually is made him look even bigger. And this is a truth I told him that I've discovered in my own life. When an opportunity shuts down on you, it's rarely because the opportunity was too big. It's mostly because it was too small. But it was something to get you going. It was something to get you looking out, to disrupt your world, to say, look, stop accepting this. You're actually stuck in. Stop accepting. Move forward. And so then our community can help him look. We're happy to help him look because it benefits all of us. Like, hey, we've done the same thing. We've been in the same darkness, in the same process. So when I was in my dark pit, my wife said to me after 3 years of trying to live with that with me, she just said to me one day, can you say anything to me that's true? Make a truth statement to me about anything, because everything you're saying is not true about yourself, your world. And I said, here's the truth statement. I don't know what I'm doing. And she said, all right, here we go. We're on the way now. I don't know what I'm doing. Good. Because when a person says, it's alone, there's nothing I can do, you're telling them that you know what to do. I know I'm stuck. I'm going to live in this stuckness. So when I made that statement, it was like the way out. And then it was just a simple question of, as I appealed outside of myself, what is it that I do? Like, what do I do? And it was, this whole disorder was to move me to a higher level of who I actually am, and to say, I'm not going to tolerate being in this anymore. I'm going to move towards it. So that's what I think. Stay in community, devotional prayer to appealing outside of yourself to God. Being able to say, my plans, I let them go. I'm just letting them go. And let the plan unfold as it will, but the way I'm trying to manipulate it or force it is producing anxiety, and I'm feeling powerless and alone. Let it go and trust the goodness of God, that what's coming next is more than what you were hoping for. It's greater, and that gives us hope.
I love that, Jamie. And if I were to sort of draw a roadmap for the listeners here today, what I heard you say is just a distillation of this. Because what I want people to do is not only take this as inspiration and information, because we know this, information by itself does nothing, but information applied catalyzes transformation. So if I were to draw a map, and Jamie, you can correct this for me as I suss this out, but the moment we're find ourselves stuck in life, stuck at a point of transition, I think in a state of an unrenewed mind, the enemy comes, and the fingerprints of the enemy, as you've said for years to me, are secrecy and shame. Okay, right. So we're stuck. There's the shame. What are we inclined to do? Self-protect and self-promote. However, what I heard you say is if we're on the roadmap, the beginning place is stuck. Stop one is we truth tell. Because the enemy traffics in secrecy and shame. How do we truth tell? We tell the truth about what we believe is happening to us and in us and who we are, but we do it in community to arrest dysfunctional beliefs that drive thoughts and actions. So, folks, here's what I want you to hear us say again. Just because something's true doesn't mean it's truth. I mean, this is Paul, 2 Corinthians 10. Yeah. We arrest every thought and every reason and everything that exalts itself against the true knowledge who is Christ himself, and we take every thought captive. So we do this in community. So Jamie, if we're on the road of this, using this as a roadmap so far, number one, quick question, how'd I do in describing that? And then number two, I'll ask a follow-up.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Okay. Very good. You're good at that. That's your identity. Way to go.
Strategist. Very good. It's one of my favorite things to do is to take complex ideas and make them palatable and strategic so people can apply them. So that leads me to this word, which we've touched on, transformation. Jamie, transformation isn't a one-time experience. You talked about this in your message about getting unstuck. It's that we would be being transformed. Right. Someone just said, wait a minute, Chris, what did you say? And I said that we would be being transformed. So Jamie, what does commitment to transformation require of us?
Well, it requires suffering. as we're saying, struggle, pain in community. It requires a commitment to be in community. It requires a commitment to truth tell. And then, so, as Romans says, we're presenting our bodies all the time as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable. So as living sacrifices, like not worth protecting and self-promoting, we're presenting ourselves as living sacrifices, which is our spiritual service of worship with God. And we're committed to no longer conforming to the patterns of the world. We're committed to no longer conforming to the patterns of the world. That's a commitment. And that is a discipline, because it is so easy just to drift back into, well, how do you do this? How does the world say you get from A to B? And I said this to a bunch of educators today, is I've never worked with a student overseas in the poorest of poor situations where that student had an encounter with God that led to them understanding who they truly were, that money was the thing that stopped them from becoming that. Never seen it. But I hear people all the time saying, yeah, I'd love to go there, but I can't afford it. Because they only know one way to get from A to B. And there's, a million ways. So I'm committed to not conforming to the pattern. We can always end up in it if that's the only way, but not conforming to the patterns of the world, but being transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will know the right way, the excellent way. So that's what it is to me, as a commitment to, I'm committed to offering my life as a sacrifice, not my will. Just another thing, Chris, I'll say it. I've said it in other places, but when you're asking God the beautiful question, ask God, what do you want me to be in pain about? That's an interesting question to ask God. What do you want me to be in pain over? Or to be mournful or sad about? And I think what people will find as they meditate on this, where the Lord says, in this I will comfort you, second the Beatitudes, get empty and then get sad, right? The things that he wants you to struggle for and be sad about and to die for are the things that he's invited you into. Mm-hmm. The way to it is through the death of the self, right? The old man has passed away and the new has come. So if the Lord's inviting, like even this is a short conversation you and I had,
sure.
Like I'm having this conversation with you after this long conversation about this situation in Africa. So right when I come on with you and I ask you, tell me your identity again, and you tell me, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're part of the community. We need to resolve the issue that they're stuck in Africa. Mm-hmm. It's the community. And so I'm mournful for the situation in Africa that I was just told about today. So I'm sad about it and I'm in pain about it. What if I didn't want to be in pain about anything? I would just forget this issue. But this is an invitation for me to be transformed, for me to have my mind renewed about situations in the world, and for me to grow to a different level. So if the Lord says to me, Chris, I want you to be sad about the fact that your book isn't out there in the world. I want you to be sad about that. I want you to be in pain over that. You would willingly go through that pain, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Pain and suffering and struggle is the way to transformation. And I don't know how more clearly Jesus could have modeled that one to us. How do you become the name of all names? Go to the cross. There you go. Right?
Childbirth. I mean, let's just be real.
Right. So what that does is it takes away the power of the tyrant. Because the tyrant's threat is that he's going to put you in pain, or you're going to die, you're going to suffer. And we look at suffering going, wow, this is what makes us into who we are. Bring it on, in a healthy way. Bring it on. So we shouldn't be surprised by struggle and pain and, things that don't work out the way we hoped. Because it just allows us to get in that place and go, okay, wait a minute, what am I about? My thinking is not true. How does this pain refine me and this struggle make me, stronger and wiser and all of that? And how do I navigate it? And then it also lets you help other people who are in pain, right? It lets you be an encourager to other people who are in struggle and pain because you've been through it. So negative emotion all help move us towards the truth of who we really are and what God's inviting us into in our life.
Jamie, every time we talk, it's so fascinating because here I am, you're talking and I'm just scribbling notes as fast as I can because I just had this picture. Actually, we can unpack this. So as you're talking about this, I think about the process of formation. And I think what a lot of us forget is formation is not just a Christian practice. Formation is a human thing. Like we're either being formed by one thing or formed by another. So here's what I just drew, Jamie, and we can suss this out. So if we look at formation, and folks, just try to picture this, and I'll try to draw this out and put it on Instagram so you can see it. But so if we're being formed, we're either being formed by fear, shame, unresolved trauma, unresolved disappointment, ungrieved losses, or we're being formed by truth and life, death to life. One leads to transformation, counterformation, or one leads to being conformed and deformed.
Right.
And it all begins in either case in the mind, either the unrenewed mind or the renewed mind. And in the case of the renewed mind, this leads us to truth and life. The unrenewed mind, leads us to self, which validates I am an orphan. I am alone. I am powerless. I am alone, right?
Right.
I'm going to draw this out because I really think this could be catalytic as we think about these things, Jamie, which leads me to ask you this. So this is one of the things we were talking about just when we were texting each other is you said the only thing in competition for God's kingdom in our lives is our own kingdom. Now, suss this out as it relates to getting unstuck and what we've talked about today, because I think that is the essence of self-protection.
That's right. Yeah. And so, it's like you can't fill a cup that's full, basically. So if I've filled myself up with my own kingdom and my own self-protection, self-promotion, where is God going to build in me his kingdom? He can't. It's already, the real estate's already been sold. And so that's why confession is so important, is to clear out the space, to empty out the space. And so that statement of not my will, but thy will be done, it's not even like, okay, well, we're not going to do anything you were thinking about. It's like, we're not going to do it the way that the world would do it. We're back to conforming to patterns. So the Lord invites me into write a book. Let's just use that example. And so I think, okay, what are the patterns of the world in writing a book? I just go right into the patterns because that's what you would do initially. And so then I'll build all my effort and everything in to make this thing go. And instead of saying to the Lord, okay, I'm willing to be, I want to be involved in this writing process and all, but I want to do it in a way that's transformative. And that involves my unique identity in the writing process, and so like we're working on a screenplay right now, and the guy, my co-writer, said to me the other day, he goes, I think just in my time in contemplation and prayer, I've come up with a new way to write a pitch deck. Like that's what we're talking about. And why do we have to go the old way where a system can control? If you're going to write this, you have to come this way, and we're the only ones that can finance it. And like, why? So, and the other thing that's really remarkable to me is like we rented this little office downtown here. It's a little shabby little office in the back of an insurance company. And we're in the very back of it. It's horrible. If you brought anyone in there, they would think you're homeless, and this is where you sleep at night. It's so bad. But the folks that work in the insurance office, are these just simple, humble, great people. Well, they've been coming back at night and reading our script, which is up on the wall. And they asked us to make them characters in the screenplay, which we've done. And so they go back there at night and read about how we're writing about them. And it's made them to start to create in their own lives. The creative process. So are we writing a screenplay? We are. But what are we doing? We're like transforming the lives of the people around us, even in the process of writing the screenplay. That's asking God, not my will in the writing process, your will. And so now this whole office has become energized by this process. And that's like, we would never have planned that way. But that's what we're saying. Lord, we feel invited into this process of writing the screenplay. Take us into the process the way you would have us do it. And we know what that does is transforms the people around us in the process, even. Not in some final product, and there it is. And Yeah. So lastly, I'll say about that, a word I was digging into the other night when I was praying was the word to experiment. I think that's an important word. And I was just looking in scripture for the idea of experimentation or experiment. And it's the word to try in scripture, to try, just try. Dokimo, I think is the Greek. And there's a passage where it says, in the trying process, it pleases God and gains the approval of men. To try, not what you accomplish, the trying part, like the journey part. And so I've been saying to people all around me for the last week, when they're telling me something, I'm like, just try. Just try. Why would you not try? If you're trying, you don't get stuck. The trying prevents the unstuckness, and trying in community is actually quite beautiful to try things in community. So that's, I even just being with you energizes me on things I was thinking about by myself today, just on my own. But then now I'm in community with you and your identity. My identity is like I'm an untier of knots, and I can do that really well, but I'm not a strategist. When I'm telling you about a situation where I'm working on the knot, you like put it into a strategy. Yeah, exactly.
There it is. This notebook's full now.
That's right. And so how beautiful is that? Mm-hmm. Without you, I'm stuck in the situation. I could be stuck in the situation, but not with you. It's hard to be stuck unless I just want to be. So I have the relationship with you and talking about what we were talking about. And then I have the relationship with God, which is my own personal identity, staying true to that. But then, with the other, love God, love yourself, love the other. There it is all the time. And in that, you don't get stuck. You won't get stuck. Right. So that's, I just, in community is so much power, just to be in community. And to say, hey, I was thinking about this situation in Africa. That opens up something to you that you didn't know about. It's an opportunity. And then, right? And so then opportunities start to open. And like, how can you be stuck in this world? You have to be living in secrecy and shame. You have to be down in some place where you're not seeing what's true because there's too much opportunity.
This is the kingdom, and the kingdom works everywhere.
That's right.
And back to where we started, we have to be willing to arrest I am powerless and I am alone, and get to the root of that. This is part of the confession process. As you've said for years, Jamie, I love this. This has transformed my life. Confession isn't saying you're sorry for stuff. Confession is telling the truth. And when we go after that, we can unhook the hinges of I am powerless, I am alone, to discover it's not true, right. To reframe, to have a renewed mind. And because this works in every sphere of life, I think this then empowers us to be, as Paul said at the end of Romans 8, more than conquerors in everything. Now, that presupposes the fact that we're going to have something to conquer. Our own limiting beliefs, our fear, our shame, our insecurity, sin, pride, all of it, And so I'm just curious, Jamie, as I'm playing this out in my mind then, if we look at one of the meta narratives of our Tim Keller calls it a triple post culture, postmodern, post-Christian, post-truth. Is this a possible reason then why so many people today are compelled to find truth within themselves? In other words, I know myself, I trust myself, and I'm not afraid of what I think I know. Back to isolation, back to secrecy, back to shame, my power, my energy, my truth. And I'm like, nope, that is a limited commodity, and it is...
Very much.
Yeah.
Right, very much. The difference, as we talked before about, between true identity and radical individualism, right? Radical individualism is just subjective. It has no sense of perspective to it. It's all about me, and it changes according to circumstance. But true identity can only move in. True identity looks immediately to the other.
That's
always.
Huge.
It'll immediately look towards the other. And you just watch Jesus talking to people. As soon as they come to an understanding of who they actually are and who he is, they immediately say things like, I'm going to give back 4 times what I stole. Like, Jesus doesn't tell them to do that. What's doing that is the true them that has always wanted to be that way.
Yep.
The true them begins to create and think of new ways to reconcile and redeem. Yeah.
Jamie, for people who are new to the podcast, and actually right now we have a ton of new listeners here, and I'm so pumped about that, but I'd love for people to walk away from this conversation understanding what we're talking about. So can you give us just a primer on true identity versus radical individualism? I think this is really important.
Right. So true identity true identity simply is received. Received is the key word. Oh, if humans knew how to receive. So it's received means it's not self-generated. Radical individualism is self-generated. Radical individualism is my own kingdom. I'm building my own, forming my own kingdom. True identity, who you actually are, is received. Listen to part number 2, in community. It's not received out, me in the woods by myself. I might get a sense of it there, but it's your identity is your gift to the world. Your identity is your gift to the world. That's why true identity will always look to the other. It'll look to the other. So true identity is received in community from God, from outside of yourself. That's what it is. We watch Jesus receive his identity at baptism. He receives it in community from God. Radical individualism is self-generated, usually in isolation, some kind of isolation. And it's self-focused. It's all committed to self-protection and self-promotion, which prevents us from receiving. It prevents us from receiving. So we did this experiment with a couple. We don't experiment, but we invited this young couple that had been through some hard things in their life just to come stay with us for 3 days. This just happened. And I said to them when they arrived, we have one condition as you hang out with us for 3 days. You are not allowed to do anything with us but receive. You don't cook anything. You don't pay for anything. You don't wash anything. The only thing you're allowed to do in here is to let us serve you and receive from us. It was so hard for them to do. And I kept saying to them, in the kingdom of God, it's all about receiving from God all that he has made when he made you and what he did on the cross. And so the only way into the kingdom is by receiving. The only way to stay in the kingdom is by receiving. Receiving is constantly allowing God to establish us in who we truly are. If I won't receive, then I build. Then I have to do it. And then I become responsible for all of it, right? So it's interesting.
It's powerful, Jamie. Listen, I mean, as is always the case, my time with you is just so rich, and I have a notebook filled with ideas and drawings. And this is just pretty par for the course for how it works when I talk with you. But Jamie, this comes back to true identity. This comes back to relinquishing the false, and it just makes me think contextually how many people, whether they were in leadership or just at a place in a relationship, dare I say a marriage, many people are on the verge of quitting right now. And I'd like to propose, number one, I have a lot of compassion for that and empathy for that. Number two, I'd like to propose that we reconcile some of these things that you've presented today. We have a total reframe on our life, which then can empower us to be free, to be change agents, to be contributors. Anything else you'd want to say about that, Jamie, or anything else we've talked about today? I mean, this has just been so rich today.
No, it's that. So just to, so when I say I'm stuck and I'm alone, I'm just saying for everyone, it's never true. It is never true. It may feel true, look true. It is not true. It is complete deception. So what is causing me to feel that way? And I'm just emphasizing community with God, community with one another, as just absolutely key to that. And then, wow, we just watch creativity. Last thing we were last night in our neighborhood group, which has only met 6 times. We don't know each other, so we're in our 6th time. And last night, I just did a thing where okay, let's each share what we kind of hope to see happen in 2022. I wrote down what everyone said, probably 6 couples in the group, individually what each one said. And then I said, okay, now everything that each one of us has said that we would like to see happen in 2022 can happen if this whole community does what each one said together. And I went through what each person said. If our whole community was committed to, okay, what you just said you want to see happen in 2022, we're with you in seeing that happen. And what happened was, by the end of the night, it all turned out to be one thing. It's like the idea that, and one of the guys in our group said, wow, it's like as things rise, they converge. So it makes the group want to be together and want to tell the truth to each other, because they realize, wow, what's in my heart to do really can only be done in community, right? Is there really a community that wants to be a part of what's in my heart to do? Yes. Because what's in my heart to do and what's in your heart to do will intersect. This is because a hand will work with another hand and an eye, and you realize, oh, we got a body here. So it prevents being stuck and alone. It's like, why would I want to be stuck and alone when I can be in community and just say what's in my heart, because the community is what comes together to actually do it.
It's so good. It's so good. It's time to get unstuck, folks. It's possible to get unstuck, and it comes in the form of true identity. We are living in a self-obsessed culture of radical individualism, and Jamie, you've just given us remarkable truth today. So I'm so thankful. Tell people how they can connect with you. You have a book coming out in June, and we'll have you back, and we'll talk all about the book specifically this summer. But tell us about how to connect, and then also, I know you have an e-course, Becoming What You Believe. I'd love for people to get a hold of that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that course on it's identityexchange.com is our website, identityexchange.com. And this course that we've been waiting a long time to film this and put it together. But yeah, Becoming What You Believe is exactly what we're talking about. God has put something in you to believe in, and he wants you to become that. And so what's the process? Just the things we've been talking through here, Chris and I together. What's the process of becoming what you believe, and understanding the identity God has given us, and then trusting in what God has called us and moving towards that? It's so, I mean, like I said, I'm 62 and I'm doing things now that I wouldn't even have written down in a goal sheet last year. But that's the depth of who we are, and it just keeps coming. It's pretty wild to look in the mirror and go, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Instead of looking in the mirror going, I hate myself or I'm a failure. It's like, wow, I didn't know that was in me. But in community with the Lord and my true self, it's like, why not try? Try it. So yeah, so that in the book, Live Fearless, is the same thing. It's like, what stops us from being who God has called us? What are the things that stop us? And what are just some simple ways that processes that we can be engaged in that will help walk us out of those lies, believe, and the secrecy and shame, as you said.
I'm so excited. We'll have you back in, like I said, in June when the book releases, and we'll just plug that and talk about it and help people live fearlessly in their true identity. So Jamie, I mean, what a treat. And I know the listeners here at Win Today just love your wisdom. And so thanks again. I love starting the new year with you.
Yeah. I just think I told our group last night, we're only on day 12, and it's been amazing so far. Not what we're afraid of in 2022, but look in 12 days, what's happened in our little community.
That's it.
It's like, that's the way to look at it. And how has all these things, challenges, pushed us forward? So yeah, looking forward to talking to you again.
There is no one in my life quite like Jamie Winship. I appreciate him so much and really trust that conversation added great value to your life. And hey, I am so sorry for my thin, nasally voice. I got hit like a truck with a stomach virus. Then 2 weeks later, here comes this sinus thing, and thank goodness, no, it's not anti-Rona. But I'm just waiting for my voice to get back to normal. So thank you for your patience and grace. I know I don't sound like myself, but hey, go to wintoday.tv/episode 282 right now. That's wintoday.tv/episode 282. Within the show notes is a link to get connected to Jamie and Donna, Identity Exchange, and pre-order Jamie's book, which is coming out in June. Again, wintoday.tv/episode www.winttoday.tv/episode 282. Well, listen, buckle up next week here on the podcast as we head into the month of March. Brooke Ligertwood is here. We're talking about longevity, self-protection, and how she makes decisions that shape her life. It's a riveting conversation, and here's a preview.
And I think I'm in a pretty critical time right now. I think this is the time when the wheels could come off if I'm not careful. In my late 30s, I've begun well and I've been running well so far, but I can never take for granted that that's just how it will continue. I have to be more attentive kind of now than ever if I'm going to finish well. So
next week, Brooke Ligertwood is here. Don't miss it.
Thanks again for joining me this week. I believe you should be able to live at your best in your relationships, in your mental and emotional health, and in your personal and spiritual growth. Self-help and life hacks help, but they will not turn the key to total life transformation that lasts. And creating a plan for sustainable transformation is what Win Today is all about. That's why I'd like to invite you to join the inner circle of readers on my email list who receive weekly strategies for growth. Just go to winttoday.tv right now to sign up. It's absolutely free. Lastly, whether you're a new listener or have been listening to the show for a while, I'd really appreciate your rating and review of Win Today on Spotify and on the Apple Podcast app. Until next week, let's connect on social media and on my YouTube channel, and of course at winttoday.tv. Thanks again for listening today. I hope you have an awesome week. We'll talk to you again really soon. Bye-bye.